Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Every once in a while I like to try out weird or unknown moneymakers in the spirit of fun. Now obviously I realize these are not going to be the most viable moneymakers when you compare them to stuff like Vorkath, Zulrah. Obviously they're not going to be as good. Fun little moneymakers like this can keep things interesting as well as be a pretty good jumping off point for people who don't have a lot of money. So if you do end up trying any of these money making methods, keep in mind mostly just for fun, but who knows, you could make a good amount of money as well. I have a few different methods to show you today. Most of them will have fairly low requirements, but I will list them as we go. Thanks for watching guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, I always appreciate it if you leave the video a like. Always helps out with the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much, and let's get started. Now first up here we have a really easy moneymaker and one that is kind of AFK. It has fairly low requirements, only needing level 54 woodcutting and the Fremennik Trials quest completed to have access to TzTokBunny. Now this first method is actually a woodcutting training method, kind of weird. Now surprisingly, one of the, if not the most expensive log in the game is the Arctic Pine log. Mainly because it's really obscure and not used in many things. However, the things that it does make are quest items, which means it does have a certain value for it. Now this method is very simple. We're just going to be coming here, cutting Arctic pine logs and banking them in TzTokBunny. They routinely go for around 400 to 500 GP each, which is way more than U logs. Now for a low level log, they cut very slowly, so it's not as good as you would imagine, just because it takes a long ass time to cut these things down. But like I mentioned earlier, extremely AFK, and probably decent-ish money for a mid-level account. So we're going to go ahead and cut these for a little while until we get a good sense of how much experience you're going to get per hour and how much money we're going to get per hour, and we'll come back then. Now we went ahead and did this for around 25 minutes, and I can say it is really AFK. However, it's not as good as I initially thought, mainly just because of how slow it is to actually chop these things. I would say you can only cut around 400 logs per hour at my woodcutting level, which right now was 71. That's not a lot, considering they also don't give you much experience. We're only getting around 15k per hour woodcutting experience. With that said, let's see how much we could actually sell them for. It looks like right now around only 415, which means you can only get around 150k to 200k per hour doing this, but a fun little alternative method. And sometimes the Arctic pine logs go for a lot because they are an obscure item, in which case this method would be a little bit better. Now while we wait for the Arctic pine logs to sell off, let's move on to the next method. Now method number 2 actually has no requirements to do it. However, to do it in the most efficient area, you will need access to Lost City. Now I'm going to be making pots of corn flour. This is simply a quest requirement item for Recipe for Disaster, and currently is actually asking a fairly high price of, I don't know, I think it was over 1,000 GP, 1778. And also instantly selling for 1500, so that looks really promising. We went ahead and bought 200 sweet corn for 252. You do want the raw variant, as well as some empty pots. Now to make pots of corn flour, you need to go to a windmill, and they're located at a couple of different locations. However, one of the closest ones to a bank is in Zanaris, which means you will need to complete the Lost City quest to do it the most effective way. So the bank is extremely conveniently located, and all we're going to do is withdraw 14 sweet corn and 14 pots and run over there. Obviously weight reducing equipment would be helpful, but I think you're going to spend more time making the corn flour than you are running, so I don't think you're going to run out of run energy at all. Now from here you simply use the corn flour on the hopper and then activate the hopper control, and kind of just do that over and over again. It's a little cook intensive, but considering right now we're making over 1000 GP per corn flour, I'm pretty happy to click a bit. Obviously one big drawback of this method is you don't get any experience, but at lower levels getting money is pretty important. From here you're just going to spam click on the empty flour bin and pick up all your corn flour. You will need empty pots or else this won't work. But there we go, we got full inventory of corn flour, worth around 12k, although we know that could be worth actually nearly double that. So I'm going to go through the remaining sweet corn here and see how long that takes and get a rough GP per hour. Okay guys, fun fact, I don't know if you knew this, but the windmill in Zanaris is the only windmill to be powered by cows. I just noticed that, and it's called a cow wheel. Pretty smart of them, to be honest. Okay, we're almost done. I figured one last thing out here, and that's the fact that you can just left click, fill the hopper, which is way easier. Less click intensive, quicker. It just overall makes this method even better. But there we go, we finished off about 200 sweet corns in roughly about 15 minutes. So we'll get our last little bit of corn flour here and see how much money this is actually worth. Okay, so there we go, we did 200 pots of corn flour in about 15 minutes, so we could do around 800 per hour. Now let's go see how much these are actually worth. So it looks like someone may actually be buying them for 1500. Let's just see if they will sell for that much at first, and then we'll bump them up otherwise. So yeah, we sold about 12 of them for 1500. We'll just keep them in at this price actually. A nice clean amount, 300k from that in about 15 minutes is pretty good. That's 1.2 million an hour filling pots of corn flour. Now keep in mind, this is a quest item, not super in demand, but people do buy them, and if you do this sparingly, it's actually a really good moneymaker. The next up here, we have a really interesting method. Now, one thing I noticed recently is look at the price of giant frog legs. They're selling right now for 7,896 GP, which is a ton. They're not used for that much, however they are used in the creature creation minigame, as well as in the wanted quest. Now the only way to get them in the entire game is by killing the level 99 giant frogs. Now those are located in the Lumberj Swamp dungeon, and are fairly easy to kill and drop them at a fairly common rate. So let's go ahead and run down there. I would recommend bringing either a Slayer helm or alternatively just wearing a spiny helmet, as we'll have to run past a couple of wall beasts. Also beyond melee gear, I'd also recommend bringing a candle as well as a tinderbox or another good light source. As from here, we're going to run through here. Oh, we forgot to put our helmet on. And that's why you bring the helmet, folks. So we're going to start out by running south. And then we're going to run east through the caves, past all the cave bugs and the cave slimes. And then we can hop over this stepping stone here. Now alternatively, you could go to Tears of Guthix, that is also probably pretty viable. But yeah, here we are, we're at the giant frogs. They're not a bad training method honestly either. They have a lot of HP, and they have a very low max hit, so they're not very dangerous. And there we go, we got our first giant frog leg already. That could just be 7,000 GP right on the ground. So we're going to try killing these guys for a little while to see how much experience per hour you could get here, as well as how much money per hour. I expect there'll be a pretty good training method at the very least, and hopefully make a bit of money as well. Okay, so I just went ahead and did the bank trip here, and a much quicker way to get here is using the Tears of Guthix teleport. I'll show you how much quicker it is. So if you have completed Tears of Guthix, I would recommend going this way. It's way quicker and doesn't require running through a cavern for so long. You just run up to the north here and there's a little cave entrance and it brings you right to where I just was. Highly recommend going this way. Alright, so I've been killing these giant frogs now for about 25 minutes or so. And we have a good feel for the drop rate of the giant frog leg, as well as what you could expect as far as experience per hour. Now keep in mind, I am pretty much maxed combat. Just using a whip and mostly max strength gear, I was getting around 75k per hour, which is honestly pretty good for such a low level monster. Now after killing around 100 of these guys, I can deduce that the drop rate of the giant frog leg is pretty much exactly 1 in 2. So on average, every other kill you should be getting a giant frog leg, which means it's extremely common. Now at the top end killing speed, you could kill probably up to 200 giant frogs per hour. Right now I'm only killing around 180, but I was messing around a little bit and of course recording and had to go back and fix something, so we could be killing a few more per hour, but somewhere between 150 per hour and 200 is possible, which means at the rate I'm killing them at, you can get around 90 giant frog legs per hour, which is quite a lot. At higher defense levels, you don't really need that much food either. So the supply cost could be almost nothing, or at the very least, extremely low. Now, if we were extremely patient, we could sell them for 7,800 each, which is a ton of money. 304,000 GP just for doing that for around 25 minutes. It means at that rate, if you were extremely patient, you could get over 600k per hour. That said, let's just try dumping them in here for 2,200 and see how many sell. Okay, all of them sold off for 2,200. Which means at the very least, you're going to get around 200k per hour, but much more if you're patient. Now, if you view this purely as a training method, which it pretty much is, it's pretty comparable to most low to mid level training methods. and provides you with actually a good amount of GP per hour quite passively. I really do think this is a pretty good alternative. Anyway guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Those are 3 weird or unknown money making methods that I think have some merit to them, but again, keep in mind, mostly just for fun. Now before I go here, I want to give a massive thank you to BradSings, who just subscribed in my Dragon tier of YouTube membership. Thank you so much, man, it means a lot. I'm so shocked that even multiple people did that. It was meant to just be a flex tier. They're joining TzTokBunny, Revolver Ocelot, and Kush Patel, but also another massive thank you to Heathenlok Games, Basstich, and Double Talk. Thank you for making the dream possible, guys. I really appreciate it. If any of you are looking for another way to support the channel, becoming a YouTube member is an awesome way to do so. You can be immortalized in any of my videos, get a custom Discord role, and have access to my video schedule. Anyway, thanks again, guys, and I'll see you next time.